players like Maru. So while he did eventually get beat, and that's just expected because Maru has the best TvT, Keen was actually able to go toe-to-toe for a little while. I think it was against Maru, and then I think there was another one versus... Might have been Beyond. So if your initial instincts, perhaps, is to look at Keen, be like, oh, well, what a streamer. Well, it hasn't really been that way for a while. He's actually been doing pretty well. Not particularly well in GSL, but as far as like showing that he can stand up with the top of the Korean ladder, he's proven that. He still does that. And then Ryung has been doing that and a little bit more as well in 2022. So he's proven that he can come back with great skill, pick up on the meta very easily, and then understand, of course, the game too, which was not really in doubt since he was actually casting a lot of the time that he was in military. He was helping out every now and again, and then when he was kind of just like basically retired, he was still doing a little bit of that, a little bit of this, casting a little bit, blah, blah, blah. And then he just decided to like actually play a decent amount, and we know then kind of the rest is history. Did well at Katowice, and is participated in GSL. So I think this might even be really evenly matched. The only reason that Ryung is going to win, in my opinion, is because he is especially good at TvT. Otherwise, I think they might be very even. Yeah, bottom left Ryung, top right Keen. And this is a best of 5, as it is a qualifying match. And top 4 qualify. Korean qualifier actually has the most qualification spots out of all of the regions. There's 3 qualifiers, and all 3 of them have top 4. Europe has 3 qualifiers, but then Europe has the last one being only top 3. Just, I don't know, kind of worked out that way math-wise, I guess. There's also an Asian server qualifier that's going to be happening later on in the week, and that is top 1 getting through. So, I mean, you're probably going to have some other people try on the Asian server. The non-Koreans will probably try. I'm not sure how many, honestly, but some of them will. Maybe some of the Europeans, maybe 1 or 2 North Americans. But, I mean, if one of these players loses here today, I think they'd have a pretty good shot at actually getting that. But they might not try, is the thing. I really don't know where they'd be at as far as how much they'd dedicate to it, I guess. It might sound kind of weird, like they're pros, or aren't they playing at everything that they ever can, but I don't know. There's something to be said about choosing your battles, although I think these guys are out of GSL now, so it's not like they really have to study hard, but still, we've seen some lacking participation in a lot of regions when you kind of least expect it. And in this case, since the Asian server qualifier, I think it's going to be double elimination, we might just have the Korean players sign up, play until they lose, and then just drop out of the lower bracket. As that is very, very common, and it's the reason that this qualifier today does not have a double elimination, is that Korean players kind of infamously do not go into the lower bracket. Oh, good retargeting there from Ryung. Keen takes a lot of damage, and Ryung really wasn't doing something so different. He is down 1 Hellion, but has now 1 more Reaper, so against the injured units of his opponents, he absolutely is going to give chase. Keen does manage to evacuate about as well as he possibly can, but now the 3 versus 2 on the high ground's a bit disturbing. Okay, Cyclone pops out, and that was all the time that was necessary to buy. Very concerning when it's also a short map when something like that happens. But Keen's good. Keen is fine. But Ryung now is taking control a little bit. Allowed to put a Cyclone out on the map. They both, I'm sure, are anticipating Raven openers. As only a few Special Terrans actually go for any Banshees nowadays. Special being one of them. They saw Beyond, I think, go for it, and then someone else went for a cheeky Banshee. Yeah. Again, very short map. Does not stop Ryung from expanding on that 3rd base, though. I mean, if this was a ramp right here in the middle, I think it'd be kind of insane how close it would be to each other. It'd be like Wings of Liberty levels. But since the ramps are on the side, I mean, the 3rd's not literally just right up against your opponent, but talking about a very swift attack and reinforcements if Keen was in position to stop this. The problem is that Keen isn't really in a position to stop it any more than Ryung is in a position to defend it, right? Ryung has the same units, but a bit of defender's advantage. And the command center also already being over halfway done means that if Keen were to now choose to try and stop it, there's a chance that it just finishes and lifts anyways. But this was good. The Cyclone lock-on from Keen was great. Does not quite kill Ryung's Cyclone, and Ryung's tank will eventually push this back, but there is a big delay. There is a delay in the command center. Again, fortunately, it is healthy, so it can't really be targeted down. But that is going to allow Keen to catch up a little bit, which he definitely wanted. He was a fair bit behind in that third CC until that happened, and SCV took a while to even come over here. And now Keen is going to try and be aggressive. It's kind of weird how you're going to force your units through here, though. Gonna have to come through this little marshland, I guess, and then kind of in the center of the natural in the third. Going all the way down to the south to appear from that angle would take quite a bit longer. It wouldn't necessarily gain you all that much more positioning. It could still be a surprise angle, one that, you know, Ryung really wouldn't be expecting, but that is at least some of the defensive properties of this map. It's short, and you do kind of automatically start pushing towards each other with your expansions, because it is just so short and kind of claustrophobic, but at least when it comes to trying to hit multiple bases or come from surprise attack paths, that's kind of difficult to do. So again, this wouldn't be so much of a surprise, maybe wouldn't be all that much more impactful, and Ryung is good about presenting a Marine over there. And then if he's focused on this midpoint, and he's like, oh no, I have to run up to the north, well, that's not too difficult either. And in fact, the more tanks he starts to include, the more that he can maybe leave some tanks here. Although you gotta be careful about that with the triple Raven that Keen does have. It is triple Raven to 2 Raven. It's gonna be very bursty from Keen. Where Ryung has the Viking lead currently, could be trying to chase a little bit more, but with the Cyclone still alive from Keen, I guess that would be the dilemma. I want to try and chase after a Raven, get locked on, and get absolutely 0 damage done, but lose your own Viking. Things have really chilled out here, man. Who comes out ahead? No one, really. There are certain advantages on either side, though. Like, Keen has the faster 4th and 5th barracks. He also has faster upgrades, but he's slower to stim and thus combat shields as well. He's also the one that's down a couple of SCVs, although as I say it, they've now evened things up. But he was a bit ahead in army. Like, very, very small differences. The biggest difference, the biggest contributor, probably going to be these upgrades, as Keen is also keen on the timing. So his armory's already done, even a little bit before it had to be. But if he goes right into 2-2, he'll continue having almost a minute. No, not a minute. Maybe like 45 seconds upgrade lead, which I think is always worth pointing out. Anything above like 20 seconds is kind of worth pointing out. But I gotta say, the amount of times that these upgrade timings have actually impacted the game is kind of low. I think the chance that you have an upgrade lead and the defending Terran player leaves an opening that large to take advantage of it, it's kind of rare. You know, because tanks are so influential in the matchup. It's like, yeah, of course I'd bop their Marines, but they have 5 tanks already sieged up, so what's my upgrade's gonna matter? Fair enough. R3RR075, thank you for the 8-month resub. I just feel like a robot saying your name. This is a great double drop. And with combat shields, able to help out against that one tank that was there. Without combat shields, maybe that tank plus the Marines would have been enough. As it is, grabs the tank, delays the 4th command center, and might be able to get out of here. Might being the operative word here. Yeah, okay, he's not gonna get out. So, that was a trade. Not hugely influential anyways, but Keen is, man, expanding like a madman. Not only his 4th TC is on location, but also his 5th, and this is, again, I think the shortest map, especially when you start to actually expand. So, oh my god, why do I always forget the one that has moon in its name? Moondance? That one is also short, but the way that you expand is kind of more on, like, your side of the map. And I think there's just more bases on that map as well. This really is kind of a claustrophobic map. And the only reason that it's not incredibly Wings of Liberty-like is that you do have some open space in the middle with these nice forests. It's so pretty. Now, Ryung is going to hammer home at the 4th base. Hammer his point home. And that point is you can't expand like this, but I'm not sure he's doing any hammering at all. Keen actually handles this superbly. His Ravens coming in with the interference matrix, taking out Ryung's real power of his push. Then I guess Ryung also getting a little overzealous, moving in as far as he did before sieging his tanks. Meant that not only did the interference matrix come in and cancel the tanks anyways, but it also meant that they didn't exactly get any chance to take any shots before they died. If they're a little farther away, then maybe the tanks of Keen don't actually get to shoot at him. Maybe he can take a better fight, maybe. But regardless, Ryung does still have a decent army supply. It's just that his tank count is abysmal. And he did just try and take a marine fight there, but Keen's upgrades, they finished up 2-2 to 1-1. No way that Ryung's gonna win that fight. And now it's getting questionable as to whether he can win this TvT. Keen is on 5 bases, going on to 3-3 immediately with a tank count twice the size of Ryung's. So Keen should have a very, very good chance here to dig into a location. And that means either a canceled or killed, rather, 4th base, or just the inability of Ryung to take a 5th base, which will continue giving Keen leads in the bank as well as the transition over into air, which he has finally started. 2 starports on the way. Now, Ryung also already has 3 starports. I must have missed that. So he was the first one to 3 starports. And it is Keen who's actually catching up. So he's already starting to produce his Ravens as well, getting the Corvid Reactor too. And I think he's kind of bridged the supply or upgrade gap maybe a little bit. Maybe a little. Maybe it was 40 seconds and now it's 30 or 25 or something. But considering that there was at least 1 fight taken, that was concerning with the lack of upgrades. Those seconds can be important. But as we move on into, again, mostly about the tanks and Viking Raven positioning, it's like, Marines, well, will they matter? Who knows? I think they will. It would certainly matter if someone really did delay their up 3-3 upgrades, like if Ryung had to choose even more so between Ravens and 3-3, and then say he was a full 2 minutes behind on that, then I think it'd still be, very impactful, but nah. And despite what is a pretty short distance between attacking from your base into your opponent's base, we do have kind of a split map scenario going on. But now we can talk about how just there are so few maps while Keen gets a pause in here. There are so few bases. Sorry, there's so few bases on this map. I mean, you kind of have your the line through the middle here. There's no shared competitive base, if you will, kind of like on... Oh, don't remember their map name right now. I want to say Glittering Ashes, but that's absolutely not the case. The big one they have. They're the gold bases. There's only 1 gold base, and it's shared between you. But, if you get to a point where you're 6th base versus 6th base, you are just right up in each other's grill. Speaking of which, Keen dives right on in here into a very nice concave from Ryung, but no tanks to kind of support that concave. I think if Ryung had his tank sieged up with the concave that he had, it's probably brilliant. But he had only had Marines, and Keen's, what initially looked like maybe overzealousness, turns into just a straight-up win. As most of his tanks survive the ordeal, takes down the planetary, looks to delay the base as long as possible. And while he will lose these 2 tanks, and maybe that wasn't really quite worth it, overall still an excellent punch to the face. Ryung is going to be reeling from that a little bit. He is quick to take another base to the bottom right, however, and Keen doesn't quite see that, I think, at the Sensor Tower. No, he doesn't quite. Even though he has a very offensive one placed out. I do like the way that Keen has been playing this TvT, man. Maybe his best matchup is also TvT. Or Ryung is just playing a little bit worse than expected is also possible. Because I really did think that Ryung's TvT was going to basically look like Keen's, which it is Keen basically leading. Keen is the leading dance partner here. He's the one that's getting expansions faster. He was getting upgrades faster. His attacks are working out. His defenses are working out. I mean, Ryung has not taken any terrible fight to the point that he loses, obviously. Like, we're still at maxed out, relatively even banks, pretty even on the technology. It's a very, very even late game TvT. But Keen has been the one that's actually felt like been doing something, and I just thought it would be the opposite. So the more that Keen continues to take control, the more that I feel like he is going to finally find that one great engagement. But Ryung is the one who's following. So it just feels like he might inevitably have to give up a base that he cannot afford to give up, and then he push into another base that he certainly can't afford to give up, and so on and so forth. Because his fights aren't exactly going his way either, although that could absolutely change. Keen very much wanting to take this army on. Actually dropped on top of the tanks, despite all the Vikings that Ryung had left over, as well as still a number of Marines that were reinforcing, obviously much quicker than Keen could reinforce. I could see how it might have worked, and it almost did too. But not quite. Now Keen has 16 Vikings to 14, 4 Ravens to 3, 12 tanks to 5. Ryung is hurting on that supply. He really got no other options. There's no Marine hit squad that is heading off to the left or the right that's going to change the pace of this game. He is once again just playing that catch-up. And it was like, as I was saying it happened. Keen found the really good engagement, the kind of finding Ryung out of position, and is very close to actually leaping forward with this to actually do some serious damage to the economy. Because right now it has been an army trade, which is still very good for Keen, but looking to open it up into also an economy victory for him as well. Now the tanks are hitting that planetary once again. And if this falls, this base isn't exactly super well protected. 12 tanks to 4. Just slow and steady, I guess. Keen's multiple sensor towers are going to alert him to any attempt to backstab or base race. This is more of a backstab. And Keen is quick to respond to his own Raven usage. All of his tanks are interference matrix, where he has not done the same to his opponent. So that might have just been a little bit of a mistake there. And his Viking count is now also evened out. His Raven count depleted entirely. And Ryung does find a bit of victory right there, but loses the planetary, loses some SCVs, and ultimately doesn't make as much headway after that perceived army victory. It is kind of just perceived, though, because there's still so many tanks from Keen, and it's not like he came out of this 0 Ravens to 8, that he has already really recovered from that fight. Any other big differences that have been going on? Oh, he got +3 attack on his vehicles. I didn't even notice that, but he also had 1-1 on his ship. Well, he had 1 on his ship weapons. I think the other one just finished. So he had an upgrade lead for some of this. Ryung actually has building armor and high-sec auto tracking, but that has not saved any of his planetaries. And now Keen is going to add on a fusion core. Probably bother to go ahead and go into Liberator range. I'm not sure necessarily because he thinks he's going to find an opportunity right here, right now, to use Liberator range. The Viking war is still pretty even, and actually, currently Ryung is winning it. But on the off chance that he does win the Viking war, Liberator pops up, suddenly a bunch of tanks die as well, that'd be pretty nice. Or just for harassment as well, I think it'd be very annoying for Ryung to deal with. He's been under so much pressure. As I've been saying, he's the one that is following, that he's trying to even defend right now. Imagine a Liberator off that left side killing all his SCVs too. He'd probably just be in a lot of trouble, no matter how good his multitasking usually is. This fight actually looks like it's going to go okay for Ryung. He definitely wins the air battle. He does save the planetary, taking out all of his opponent's tanks. And now the tank count's looking a lot more even than ever before in this game. The Liberators will certainly have to hold off there. But you know what else he got besides a fusion core? He also had a Ghost Academy. So we do have EMPs on the way. He's going to look to EMP the Ravens. Hopefully we have a nuke as well. I think that'd be fun. But yeah, definitely just thinking about EMPing the Ravens. Which, you know, everyone in Twitch chat feel validated, you know? But it still might not be the end-all be-all. Like, the problem with this is, one, getting into range necessarily. And then two, actually depleting the Raven energy entirely. So getting that actually good EMP. Might not be that easy. Now, what usually happens in these fights is that the air army is controlled on one hotkey, as you can kind of see here, and everything else controlled on a different hotkey. So the Raven and Viking do usually kind of run forward together, which means that a Ghost on the ground, you know, not gonna hit by those Vikings, probably gets an EMP before the tanks siege up in its face. Once Ryung has one EMP hit his Ravens, he'll probably be a lot more careful with sending something else in the army outwards first. And then the Ghost will never be able to actually hit the back line of Ravens. But we'll see how it really works out, really, because it is just a counter to the Ravens. If they're in position to get EMP'd, there's nothing they can really do about it. There's no feedback here to take them out of the equation. So if Ryung has no energy, and Keen does have energy on his Ravens, that's a substantial difference. I don't think the Ghost has been quite revealed yet. He wants it, though. Ryung did lose this base in the bottom right, but is about to replace it. His orbital is looking awfully undefended. Scan is just barely not going to see that Ghost. Uh-oh. It's actually kind of amazing he hasn't seen it yet. And Cloak is even on the way. Oh, he sees it now. All right, so this is going to change how he uses his Ravens a little bit. He's not going to be able to be as cavalier with them. But he still kind of have to bring them forward, right? Like, exactly the dilemma that Ryung is having right now is that he would love to also get something done with his Ravens, if he can, but content on taking the Viking War for now. It's when when Keen kind of pulls the trigger and goes for it, and then Ryung, goes to also slap down a bunch of interference matrix and auto turrets, that he gets EMP, and then it's a bad time. But that was really good. That was actually really good control. As I said, I think seeing the Ghost is really important, knowing that you actually have to control your Ravens differently than your Vikings is something that these pros are able to accommodate, but until they have to, they won't. And we actually have a battle going on. Huge battle going on. It looks like Keen still gets a lot of his tanks interference matrix. The Ravens end up doing their job. The Ghost EMP was not impactful enough, and Ryung also winning the air war. So Keen is forced to land whatever Vikings he does have and protect the tank line, which is still up and running, but Keen... the biggest difference is that he's got such an economy. So that might have been a good fight for Ryung, but Ryung has been bleeding out in the economy this entire game. He never did get that bottom right base up and running. The orbital command's about to die. He's kind of betting it all, it looks like, on winning this fight over here. Now that he's already down 20 army supply, doesn't look all that possible. Goes to looking for an EMP on the last remaining Ravens, of which Ryung cannot afford to build anymore. Okay, he is going to finally put them into the Ravens, but it's tricky now. He knows that he's running out of gas. He even sees that his opponent is taking the most offensive base that is possible. Now, Ryung would love to be taking the same one, too, but... or the opposite one over here, either way, but he just can't. So that's a Rich Vespian Geyser in Keen's pocket, which Ryung is very jealous of, I'm sure. And Ryung is gonna get a Banshee. That's a bit desperate. Keen's expanding on location. Jeez Louise. He is certainly in control. Just a handful of Marines gonna push back this command sim that wasn't a planetary. And even if it was a planetary, I mean, Keen could bring over just a couple of tanks, and Ryung would struggle to defend that. We got a nuke coming down, but we're not actually gonna see it hit. GG. Ryung... not gonna win that TvT right there. And since it was such a macro TvT as well, that makes me concerned. I underestimated Keen's TvT. Or I overestimated Ryung's. Either way. I did not estimate correctly. Because that was a very strong TvT from Keen. That wasn't just, oh, my build order was better, or I found you out of position once, and it kind of snowballed. It was consistent. And we're already into game number 2. Going to be on inside and out. The bottom left, it is Ryung. On the top right, Keen, who is up 1, and is sending out a little proxy. So now I'm in the right matchup. It's TvT. I got confuzzled in our last series, but with one SCV, it would be a single proxy barracks marauder. Second SCV is on the way, though, so it is going to be proxy 2 racks. Inside and out is our kind of middle of the road, I think, rush distance map, if I remember correctly. And actually, no, I think it's below Cosmic Sapphires, and then Stargazers is our middle of the road one. Something like that. I don't... Anyways. The point is, not about whether this will influence a proxy. Proxy's taking away the Russians anyways. About more so what type of build Ryung is going to do, right? So if it's a larger map, maybe a guy like Ryung in a best of 5 would attempt a 1-racks expand, but then guaranteed he would do a scout. Otherwise, kind of on every other map, it's guaranteed to go factory expand, but then just in general in TvT, well, it's not guaranteed factory expand, it's like 80%. 80% they're going to be in a factory expand. The real kicker for the defense of the 2 racks, when you consider that then, because you're like, okay, well, Keen also knows that it's most likely a factory expand, so what's really his hope here? The hope is that Ryung still does an SCV scout, and then he goes for, like, 1 Reaper, sends it across the map. Oh no, 2 Reapers my base, brings it home, it dies, it snowballs right after that. Even if he didn't scout, got this first Reaper, and then the second Reaper is on its way, the second Reaper takes a very long time, and you can still almost, you know, not guaranteed win against the first Reaper because they pull SCVs and whatnot, but you can increase the chances of you doing damage. But if Ryung SCV scouts, he's got the safest build possible because he doesn't have to worry about how his Reaper's being used. He knows to keep it back at home. He doesn't have to worry about a second Reaper taking forever because he just goes into a Marine, which is going to pop out a lot faster and add that little bit of DPS. So Keen, I think, was really hoping that primarily there wasn't an SCV scout, and then additionally, the Reaper was miscontrolled. In this case, it is going to be Keen losing his Reaper and not trading out for Ryung's Reaper either, although that almost got a bit funny. And Keen's opener not looking so hot right now. And the SCV just getting more and more free scouting. Ah, finally gonna die. What a hero this was. What a hero it was. So Keen very quickly gives up on the Reapers. He's not gonna try and bamboozle Ryung by going into more like 5 or 7 Reapers. Aha, gotcha. He thought I was gonna stop. Nah, Keen is moving on, and Ryung is going to be able to scout that and move on himself as well. He's gonna have a bit better of a fighting force, but one that is not hitting its full potential as long as Keen hides behind a wall. Keen knows that as well, so he goes for High Ground Command Center. So Ryung also, I guess, a little scared of what might happen should he go for a low ground expansion. Goes for his own high ground. Might have been an opportunity for Ryung to just straight up get ahead by a good 20-30 seconds on the orbital. But, say Livy. Ryung is still a worker ahead with a bit of potential with this push. Bringing the Marines is kind of cute. I don't know if it really does add a whole lot, though. And Keen even sees, hey, your entire army's over here? Let's go backstab. Because a Cyclone and a wall will cover most things. Maybe the Reapers could have jumped up for Ryung. Reaper, sorry, but that's not really worth it. I think Ryung was also wary of that little backstab. Fortunately, he did go for the high ground expansion, so there's something to kill over here. The Cyclone pops out. Reapers cannot take that on. But if the Reapers here of Keen can cause a little chaos, well, then that's the best thing they've done so far. And since it is a TvT... Oh, that's actually going to be a kind of an aggressive TvT. Medevac is on the way. I was going to say, there might be a bit of a lull. We could talk about other things, but... Actually, a Medevac on the way from Ryung. Now, Keen has gone into his natural command center is on the way. Great. But then he added the reactor and tech lab to his 2 barracks, the ones that he proxied, right? So he already has some decent marine production, but it hasn't really ramped up yet. And then he's also just gone into Viking production, so it's like he predicted the medevac coming out from his opponent, which I guess he saw no tech lab on his opponent's starport, so that kind of makes sense. And Keen, so far, with a great defense, cleans up the medevac, saves his Cyclone, that natural, which I wasn't expecting. And that tank in perfect position really did help there. And it's just the Reaper of Ryung trying to do some extra damage, but Keen even comes out of this ahead at this point. Up 4 workers. Much faster stim. That's more of a trade-off than it is being ahead. Ryung is going for Raven production, and Keen is not, but certainly the workers are ahead. Might change, however, as that 3rd TC is already on the way for Ryung. So, what we do, I guess I have a lull now, before the medevacs are out for Keen, which he is getting them basically now. Someone asks, why would I be excited for Stormgate, but not excited for Immortal Gates of Pyre? Immortal... Excuse me. Really need that stretch. Immortal Gates of Pyre is not developed by like leading skill sets in the industry. Is like one of the biggest reasons, just right off the bat. They have people who I think have talent and some skill, but are pretty much green. It is, I think, a well-produced like indie game, which means that it's going to be missing some of that polish. And by some of that polish, I mean really important polish, not just like quality of life things, but I mean the way that the units move and the ultimate end goal of the game. So I have played a little bit of it. Granted, it was months ago, even a year ago at this point, but I did not like the way that it moved, the way that it looked. And I don't have as much confidence in the end results being really feeling as good as a StarCraft game as I do from the Stormgate game, because that is literally being made by the people who made StarCraft feel the way that it feels. So, yeah. The only thing I really like about Immortal is, I think the aesthetic is really cool. It's kind of unique. Not many people are using that, like, Mesopotamian type situation, type aesthetic. kind of like Egyptian, but not just full-on Egyptian, which has already, also been really overdone. And then I do like that the team is so, like, passionate and thinks critically on what makes an RTS good. I just don't agree with their ideas, and I don't think that they have the experience to actually make it appealing. So I think it'll be a decent RTS game. I might give it a go, but I really don't have high hopes for it as far as it being my new main game, or its esports scene really being all that popular. I also have not really appreciated some of their like business practices, to be honest, which nothing super scummy. It's not super bad, but just they've contacted people and kind of dropped them very quickly afterwards. I think they're going way too hard on using the kind of good nature of some of the RTS fans to hype up a game that has no proof yet. So I don't really care for the like the Kickstarter goals. So like every StarCraft streamer in the world has like their banner in it. It's not scummy. I just think it's kind of silly. Anyways, it didn't help that one of the first times that I saw the whole thing was when Jack Attack basically used Blizzard's announcement of StarCraft no longer having content updates. Jack Attack then made a Reddit post with a video that basically said, "Sorry that StarCraft is dead, guys, but don't worry, we're making a super awesome game," which felt very in poor taste. Anyways, that about sums up my feelings, I think. I think I've gotten it all out of here. So back to the game. Keen had this faster stim. Of course, faster combat shields alongside that. Still a decent number of tanks, and he even got to a good number of Vikings. And the reason that's really important is that while having stim might be great if you are down in tanks or you've not even begun to contest the air, then that can be the upside of the defending player, in this case, Ryung. But if you're kind of even on that, but you have stim and combat shields, well, then you should just be ahead. But this fight was really awkward. Keen kind of gets a little surrounded, but then also wasn't expecting the attack from the back, so whereas Marines were supposed to be protecting his tanks, the tanks were free for the taking. They got interference matrix, and they were already being bombarded by Ryung's tanks. Where if the Marines are on the fronts like they're supposed to be, that would be a bit of a different dynamic. And now Keen might just be dead. So that was a very swift change. Keen was pulling back at a very good time, but that pounce there from Ryung was really well done. And Keen is actually just dead, by the way. That was too dramatic, and it was on his side of the map as well. If an attack like that happened, but it was over here, there's a chance that Ryung still holds on. Or, sorry, Keen still holds on, but... yeah, it was so close to Keen's base, and he lost all of his tanks. That's just GG. So your cat died? You want to see my new cat? Kind of, but, you know, even then there's some positive qualities to someone being like, well, do you want to see pictures of my kitty? I mean, because cats are just generally cute, right? It might be more like, well, your grandpa just died. You want to see pictures of my grandpa? And you're just like, no, I wouldn't want to do that anyways. But especially not now. I certainly don't want to paint the Gates of Pyre guys to be mean or anything like that. I don't think they are. I just think that they've been clumsy in some of their social interactions is all. I don't think anyone's actually malicious there, or that they're looking to become like Blizzard but without the money, which would be very foolish of them. Nah, I don't think it's that bad at all. It's just a lot of things basically can be summed up with not quite. You know what I mean? Not quite good enough on a lot of fronts to appeal to me personally. Alright, so game number 3 of this best of 5. Keen versus Ryung. Day to see. Bottom left Ryung, top right Keen. I am, of course, hopeful for Stormgate, but I'm not, I think, as optimistic as some others out there. I know, like, talked to Tasteless about it, and he was genuinely very, very optimistic. Like, a lot of us are excited about the possibility of a new game and a new esport for RTS, but there's a difference between that and just straight up being optimistic that it will actually be good enough and popular enough. My concern is not even just how good it is necessarily, which, you know, I hope it's good. But even the best RTS games aren't necessarily going to make a big enough esport. So, and not just RTS actually, even the nicest games with a multiplayer function don't automatically make an esport, right? So it is hopeful because they literally have an esports kind of department already set up and they're going to try and push it. I think that does really help its chances. But even then, there's really no guarantee that it catches, right? So, unless you throw in lots of money into it, you kind of put the full weight of your company behind an esport and kind of almost force it a little bit. There's a huge question mark as to whether it's going to be viable or not. So there's pushing your weight behind it like Blizzard with Overwatch, which I think we all agree has been way too overblown and bloated and is not great. But then there's also more like Valorant, where Riot was like, yeah, it's definitely gonna be an esport. So like, let's just build everything necessary and let's go with it. And the first year wasn't even that great for them. The first year really wasn't that great for them. But it just kind of was like, well, eventually it will be. Like, Riot's gonna put money into this. And it's also kind of a proven formula too, which I think Overwatch was always gonna be in question. There was nothing stating in the history of esports that an arena shooter would be the popular spectator sport. There's nothing. Like, yeah, TF2 was well beloved by a lot of people, but that wasn't really a great esport. And like Quake and Unreal also never really caught fire. So yeah, but you know, CS:GO obviously, Valorant basically just CS:GO with a couple of abilities. Anyways, I don't know if Frost Giant's going to have the ability to push their weight around because they're not very heavy to begin with. They do have a decent amount of money, but not Riot. Not Riot levels. Anyways, moving on once again from the topic of, I guess, game design. We got ourselves a TvT, both of them factory expanding. Keen going for the Reactored Reapers is going to have 5 of them and 3 Hellions to send across the map. And then Ryung is going to have 3 Reapers and just a single Hellion. Now, his Cyclone might come out in time because his Widowmine is going to buy at least a little bit of time or a little bit of damage. So I think Ryung will be okay. This is the type of opener that can get weird fast. And if Keen was going for a medevac as well, then that would be really concerning. Just avoid the Widowmine altogether, right? But he's not. So this Widowmine should buy some playing time. And Ryung's Cyclone is almost already out. And the Widowmine kills 1 Hellion. And then the Reapers go into the main. It looks like Ryung kind of predicted this. He already had his army in the main base. And the 2 Hellions, well, it was just a matter of kind of pulling the SCVs. And that was a really rock-solid defense from Ryung. That was just him, I guess, able to really foresee a second into the future is all he needed to have his army in the right position. And then a really calm response as well as he's kind of pulled even only some of his SCVs. So that was nice. That was really nice. In fact, it was so nice that you just think that Ryung was straight up ahead. Which, I mean, he kind of is. He's going to have a faster Raven, faster tank, so yeah. And he's going to take advantage of that lead, too. Yeah, you know, fact is, he just killed his opponent's army for the most part, and while Keen's already rebuilding the better one, it's going to take a little while. And Ryung already there, just grabs his 3rd CC on location. Easy peasy. You know, you're not the first person who said that the social RTS aspect is what's scaring you, but it's funny because you're the opposite of what other people have said. I just am so surprised people hooked on to that phrase. That was just, like, so unimportant to me when they said, we're going to make it more social. It's obvious that they should try and encourage something there because they literally have a game that didn't encourage being social as proof as to how that can fail the community. But I never took that as more than just a, well, we're going to try and make it so that people can actually talk to each other and like, enjoy being online and not feel like it's a lone, empty universe. But people are like, well, I'm afraid that means they're going to, you know, force me to play nice with people who are going to call me names. And then you're saying, well, I'm afraid they're going to be heavily moderating it, so I can't even say, you know, butts, like Age of Empires. And I'm just like, I'm really not concerned either way. I genuinely am not. That is like the last thing of concern for me. There's so much more important shit, and I just don't think it's even that important in general. And I feel like I can say this without coming from too much of a place of privilege, because I am a woman on the internet. So you'd think I would be concerned about like the social aspect of things, but when it comes to a 1v1 game, I'm really not. So I don't know. I don't know why this is such like a point of conversation for some people. I just don't see how it is. But that's just me. Keen is the one that's actually pushing in here. And Ryung has already taken some damage to a Raven harass. 5 SCVs go down, lots of lost mining time, miscontrol on the front as well as the Cyclone goes down there. And, well, Keen just getting actually on top of the command center is already a big gaffe here from Ryung, who's not supposed to lose it, by the way. Oh, but another tank gets drawn forward? Yeah, Ryung is not playing up to his usual standard. What if Stormgate gets super popular and Riot buys it? I really can't be sad if that were to happen. Riot does have some bad business practices on the backside, and we certainly heard a lot from it. If you listen to my podcast or just like the Monte Cristo podcast, or just watch his Twitter in general, he has very bad opinions of Riot, but no, I don't know. Riot has already treated me better than feels like Blizzard has in a long time, so. It looks like Ryung is not going to die right here, right now. But I still say that he is just not playing up to his usual standard. It took a long time to repair this command center, so I was worried that was going to burn down. He did, but, you know, still got to that point in the first place. He lost a couple more units than he really should have, so he's still down 2 tanks. And Keen is faster to stim and combat shields. Once again. Now, they didn't really work out for him last game, so keep that in mind. But, yeah, Ryung is a little off for the start of Game 3. Keen's gonna take another base on location. I think this guy just likes doing that. He was safe about his natural and his third, but he's like 4th and 5th. Coming down on location. In a way, he's even bolder, but another way, yeah, I can see how he gets away with it most of the time. Moderation hits critical level. I end up muting all the start of the game to avoid people pissing me off, I guess what you meant to say. I mean, how does increased moderation do that, though? Wouldn't lack of moderation do that? Because then people can say whatever they want, and then you just automatically mute them. Thing is, I just don't... I don't know. That's still not a problem for me. Like, if someone's being a jerk in this 1v1 game, I do just mute them. It's not that big of a deal. But as far as just kind of creating a more conducive launcher to you know, actually create social engagement, I think that's fine. And I think they're more than aware that people are going to choose not to do any of that, and they can turn off all PMs, or they can stop joining general chat, or whatever else that they've invented in the last 20 years that makes it easy enough for people to have their cake and eat it too. I mean, if we're just talking about automatically joining a chat channel, you turn that off. If we're talking about better, improved clans and guilds, then I think that's just always a net gain. And if we're talking about a funner, more engaged arcade community, then also is going to increase the social factor without necessarily forcing you to listen to a guy that keeps using the F word, you know? Maybe this will be a huge deal when it actually comes out, but yeah, it's not the thing that I'm worried about. Keen is going to have to lose the space, it looks like. There's just not a lot of stuff from Keen. Oh, specifically not a lot of tanks. And the Marines probably also not good enough. Nicer concave for Keen, so he's going to be able to kind of... He's playing a bit of a footsie game with Ryung's Marines, but there you go. Ryung finally does push that back, so Keen has to cancel the command center. That was a decent chunk of Keen's army, but it was a lot of the Marines. So as far as his tanks, they still can hold the line. That's exactly what they're going to do, is hold that third base. Vikings, however, on the main base, get kind of found out, basically. Ryung takes those down, does open up the opportunity to go for a medevac drop in the main, which Keen is already trying to defend that chance, so yeah, there you go. 2 tanks are sieged up, multiple Marines in place, 3rd tank even comes forward. Is this going to be a good idea? I don't know about that. 3 tanks are still firing away. Yeah, exactly. Ryung's like, okay, maybe that wasn't the best idea. He's going to try and just hover over the base, but more Marines are on the way. Marines are over on that 3rd base as well, but actually Keen is not paying attention. Neither one of them are paying attention because Keen went for a bit of a counterattack, brought about half of his army, and is finding some success, clearing out a lot of the Vikings, and having his tanks, I guess, kind of dangerously close to the command center, but not actually hitting it. And that is going to be a full cleanup. That was a nice cleanup there.
Received. Thank you for appeasing the Overmind.
Foe out Fox, thank you for the Prime sub. Because people start harassing in different ways which aren't detected by the mod system. I don't have any experience with that, honestly. I have played League of Legends, and even when someone was a real asshole, I don't know, I guess they didn't go to the great lengths to harass me. I'm not saying that, you know, dealing with harassment is like no big deal. I'm not straight up like Xbox gamer broing you guys right now. Like, I grew up when people were using terrible words and I just dealt with it like a big girl. Like, no, not at all. I would be so happy if there was better ways to moderate people being assholes on voice in Valorant. So that as soon as I talk, they don't go, girl, girl, girl. I am sympathetic. I just can't say that I care when it comes to an RTS. I just really, I can't. It is a non-issue for me. When they say I want to, you know, they want to increase the social aspect, I think they just mean opening up avenues to actually be socially active and not forcing people to be socially active. So I don't know why, I honestly just don't know why that's scary. I just really don't. There's a fact, and that fact is that StarCraft 2 was kind of antisocial. It encouraged loneliness. It is a common complaint of StarCraft that it is lonely, and they are looking for ways to improve that. But they're not going to force people to hold hands, all right? So if they're going to make clans and guilds better, and they're going to make the option to battle out in a best of, if they're going to add a button to the winning screen that says you want to play with me in 3v3 after you won against them on a 1v1, okay, yeah, I can see that being spammed, and it's kind of annoying, but then, you know, if they are dumb enough not to include a block button or a stop all invites button or whatever it is that they have to do, then it's going to come up in the beta. People are going to be like, here's ways that people can harass. And they're going to be like, okay, we understand. We'll change that. It seems like, you know what it is? It seems like the easiest thing to fix is what it is to me anyways. But I don't have experience being toxic on League of Legends or any of the team games. So maybe I'm underestimating how difficult it can be. But I feel like them trying to push the social factor isn't going to make it more or less difficult for assholes to be assholes, you know what I mean? Like, what is really stopping people from being obnoxious assholes in StarCraft? Not much, right? Can you just not do the same thing that you do in StarCraft that you can do in League of Legends? Block, report, move on? Except in a StarCraft game, you don't have to team up with them later on. Like, that is the biggest difference, right? Anyways, it's clearly more of an issue for other people, so I guess that'll be the last time I mention it. But when there's a TvT going into the late game, to be honest, there's not too much more to talk about. Keen is once again out expanding Ryung, so that's good for him. Ryung's still hopeful for a really good engagement, and he's taken at least one or two this game, so... Aside from the very beginning, where he had some micro mistakes, it's been going about as expected. And actually, in the very beginning, Ryung played beautifully against the opener of Keen, so it really was just this third defense that was a bit questionable. Everything else has been pretty damn good for Ryung. And this is a pretty good defense, once again, but, I mean, it seems likely it'll be a good defense. Has a lot of tanks for Ryung and a lot of Vikings for him. And he's got the high ground kind of going for him, too. The only problem is that Keen is in range of the planetary. So Ryung kind of has to shake him loose, basically. Which seems very possible, but it's proven to be more difficult than anticipated. There's a couple of Ravens. There we go. I did feel like only a couple of Ravens were necessary to push that back, and it just took them a while to actually pop out and get over here. So, good save in the command center. That is still Keen doing more than Ryung. Again, more expansions, more upgrading. Looks like he's building more Ravens. Well, no, not actually. 5 starports to 5, okay. So it's a matter of what they're putting their production into. But still, more expansions and more attacking a lot of the time. Ryung finally going to get a jab back, though. Find a couple of these command centers that are easy enough to get canceled. And, not going to get the planetary I would expect. Keen is coming across to defend it. Haven't been toxic in LoL, you are blessed. Oh, I've had assholes. I've had, you know, really dumb people as my teammates or on the opposing team, even. but I haven't gotten anyone who is like rabidly obsessed with making my life miserable, which I understand does happen. At most, I think they've, you know, started to message me afterwards that I'm bad, and then I blocked them, so. I think part of the not worry for me too is that I'm also just not really worried about communicating with my teammates. But I've never been worried in RTS for it. I 100% believe that it's like very important to these other team games that are baseline team games. So it might be important to the 3v3 mode that they're going to have. It might be. But personally, I've never found it all that necessary to actively communicate with my teammates in StarCraft or Warcraft. Typing what you're going to do in the beginning and then maybe pinging what you're going to do in the game has always been enough for me. And that's always what I've liked about StarCraft team games, is that it feels like you can kind of do your own thing a decent amount of the way and still be effective if you're still a good player. Where obviously in League of Legends, you know, you do have to work a lot more cohesively. I never had any problems with co-op or teammates either in these games. And I did used to play a lot of team games, so this is speaking from historical experience anyways. Alright, more scuffles. More scuffles. And then more scuffles. And then some more. Keen looks to be losing this base. No, his tank siege up enough time. And that is quite a dangerous choke to go up. Maybe these rocks will be broken down eventually. They have truly split the map, by the way. It's TvT between two evenly matched players. Shouldn't be all that surprised to see that this is taking a long time. The other qualifying matches have already finished up. We have Beyond advancing over Prince and Sue advancing over Nightmare. And then DRG Chance is still going on, apparently. Right side, Keen's gonna lose a planetary. Left side, Ryung's gonna lose a planetary. He's also kind of cut off. A little more awkward for Ryung as he loses a couple of tanks as well. And Keen scans see if the army is about to pounce on him. Not quite the case, and that is quite the air army. Jeez Louise. Ryung up 26 Vikings, Keen at 24. I mean, literally, Ryung has zero Marines. Like, that is not common at all. Even in the later stage of the TvT, there's almost always about 20 Marines, I would say. And then at least 20 Marines. But Ryung has definitely chosen to go more into a mech game. So if he added more factories, that wouldn't even surprise me, but he's too low on gas to do that. Keen's also been on 3-3. Oh, okay. Ryung had +2 vehicle ship armor. But he's never had any of the attack. Okay. Probably doesn't want to get that fixed up. There you go. Very quick denial of the new command center of Ryung. Now, Ryung has plenty of minerals to replace command centers with, but he's definitely low on that gas. He needs to protect this bottom right base. He goes in for the fight. Orange painted everywhere. Interference bitches put everywhere. Auto turrets put everywhere. It is just good old-fashioned TvT. That's what it is. Good old-fashioned TvT. Tanks get obliterated by the auto turrets of Ryung. And Keen does take a supply loss there. Down now by 20 army supply. It looks like he is trying to go into... Well, no, not really going back into Marines. Okay, maybe he is. Maybe it is. Okay, 60 Marines at a time now. So he might be trying to go back into the Marines. Thing is, if you get a decent enough concave after tearing down some of their tanks, let's say this was 7 tanks, and you get a decent enough concave, you sacrifice some of your Ravens for Interference Matrix, you can totally bop the army. But you do still have to consider the amount of auto turrets thrown down, because they are still, with that number of auto turrets, they're still scary for the Marines. So it's certainly a tactic. It's a bit of a risky Gambit to go back into Marines in a game like this, but it can sometimes work out. It also is sometimes the only option if you're short on economy to go back into Marines. The Keen does bring forth a handful, perhaps kind of out of desperation for that brief moment where he saw his army not sizing up to Ryung's, but then back into Ravens and tanks. And Ryung just continues to stay the course, which is still mostly mech, but he did add, yeah, 17 Marines. Just to go sacrifice them. Go die. Oh my gosh. Scan's going down every which way. Keen's gonna go for a double-pronged attack, where I think the plan was maybe to land on the planetary with the Vikings? Or did he just think that the army was there? Well, no, but his army was split up. Okay, that's why I'm thinking he was going to try and go for a drop, if you will, on the planetary and then an attack up to the left, but maybe not. Maybe there's something else in play. He does now consolidate his army. Keen has a couple more Vikings, but 4 less Ravens. We don't know how this engagement's going to go, but right off the bat, Keen loses another Raven. Doesn't get an anti-armor missile on his opponent, but takes one himself. And, what is going on here? Raven. Ooh, transformation servos. I do like that. And once again, adding on a Ghost Academy. Gonna look for an EMP on all these Ravens. Koreas have never sponsored StarCraft, they're stupid. I'm pretty sure they haven't. Maybe a very long time ago. I think they've sponsored other stuff. Like Gears of War. Well, I might have chosen the most even best of 5 series. I also chose perhaps the most frustrating one. TvT, stalemates. G-g. Still not even 2 hours on the qualifier though, so. I'll live. Liberator range, I think that was a second, no, and a third Ghost Academy. So he will be getting nukes. And we got ourselves potential base trade? Maybe? The Vikings, they could land on top of this planetary. With transformation servos, they would kill it fast enough. I think the trade might be worth it, but then it would be a trade of Vikings, right? Which is a real questionable thing to be doing right now if you lose 4 or 6 doing it. But the tanks, well, that is another problem. Tanks alone. Have to be very careful about trying to take down a planetary for exactly the reasons we just saw. Very quick on siege, though. Was able to save majority of them. Ryung's little run-by is just tanks, which eventually will be cleaned up. I mean, they certainly can be cleaned up, but Keen's not running any units over there. He just landed a couple of Vikings, but he's going to need a bit more than that. He's still rallying to the front lines with their anti-armor missile on his army. They both have given away some of their SCVs, ET-dubs, so there's more room to play with on the army supply. But currently both of them at an equal army supply. And Ryung just trying to outposition Keen. We do have the EMP attempt, but it was missed. And didn't have the enhanced shockwaves to begin with anyways, so Raven energy coming down everywhere we look. Looks to be initially in favor of Keen. He's going to continue taking the air war as well. 35 Vikings to 22. He's certainly winning that, but the auto turrets coming down en masse. And Ryung should be winning that war because he has so many more Ravens. And the Keen needs to just move his Vikings, but he's trying to pay attention to the bottom right as well. Cleared up a planetary. Going to try and save those tanks. He finally cleared out the tanks at the top left. And he does, I think, pull back his Vikings finally. But his tanks are now going to be under fire. His planetary is going to be under fire. It does look like that Ryung has won too many of these late game battles. And Keen has not been able to hold up to it. Keen's not dead yet, but 3 tanks to 11. scary. And his Viking count no longer heavily ahead. Don't know if he's gonna be able to rebuild another army either. Ryung's the one that's expanding yet again and can probably take this base as well if he's got any extra command centers. He does. A nuke could change the course of this game. I would love it if it did. And a nice find here is just a handful of Marines. Ryung putting an orbital on a base that he is nowhere close to defending. Should be punished. Ryung still has plenty of orbitals, though. 7. How many does Keen have? 12. Wow, okay. Now Keen's gonna take this top half of the map, I guess. Yeah, makes sense. But he's just lost so many more resources, even though they've been expanding and thinking. Mining, sometimes very, very similar. Right now, Ryung is not mining much at all. All of his bases are mined out, and he hasn't dropped all of his mules yet, I think is the issue. And he doesn't have as many mules either. So, that is a huge difference. Holy shit. Maybe it's just all the mules that Keen dropped. Oh my god. And Ryung needs to get on it, but he's also got to make sure that he has scans available. So with 7 orbitals, I guess he is kind of picking and choosing. And Keen with 12 is like, whatever, do whatever the hell I want. Nuke number 1. Coming on down. Keen, please do not nuke your own army. So far, so good. I believe that was the only nuke, and he's not rebuilt any other ones. They are both getting maxed again, so it's possible that Keen, on a couple of fresh new bases, might afford another nuke. But right now, he needs all the gas that he can get going into his replenished army supply. He has taken these bases as orbitals, so they are not well protected, and Ryung could do the same thing that just happened to him. We just had a couple of Marines up there. Easy peasy. But right now, totally focused on the defense. As Keen starts to encroach ever closer. He's taking the Raven lead. A little behind the Vikings. Better upgrades on them, though. It looks like Keen was also wary of his orbitals either being under-defended or he wanted to try and kill some of the orbitals here, so his Marines... well, they try. They were not in high enough numbers to stop Ryung's push. It's going to grab 2 orbitals, I believe. At least the one. This one might be saved by the tank here. And Keen actually just entirely runs back home to deal with this. And actually, no orbitals died. He might have to save both of them. But that does leave an open opportunity. Oh, he's going to try and nuke. Woo! Didn't really work. Also, he doesn't have any nukes, does he? So never mind. Though he just miscontrolled his ghost for a second there. Ryung is able to push back a lot of these orbitals, and it looks like one is being repaired, the other one is being repaired as well. No? So we'll see about that one. He still gave up a chunk of his supply to do so. And despite all being on all the bases, they're running out of minerals. 32 minutes. Mineral patches are starting to dissipate on the first 5 bases. It is their fresh, new 3 bases that they have on each other's side of the map that is holding them together. Cheeky, and the Marines still on top of the tanks. Tanks on siege. SCVs try and get us around. It is kind of a silly looking battle, but one that Keen's tank is going to win. He also manages to find Ryung totally out of position to save this base. I don't know if that was an orbital or planetary. I think it was just an orbital. This one, definitely an orbital. Not going to go down by the looks of things. Keen did not stim again to try and take it down. And he is just trying to protect his own bases from the little pokes and prods that's currently going on here. Cheeky position on the tanks for both of them. Constant scans going down. Actually, Keen's tank isn't scanned. Oh, he's gonna actually kill Ryung's tank. And they're constantly scanning the bottom right too. Keen wants to get a little bit more if he can, but unable to. Their armies are just so similar, so dangerous to contest. I think I'm liking Keen's army more though, right? He's down 4 tanks, but he's ahead in Vikings, ahead in Ravens, and he's got a Ghost for an EMP. And I don't think 2 medevacs are really all that impactful right now, so that doesn't seem like too useful for Ryung. Are we gonna get completely mined out? Are we gonna go to 42 minutes? Are we gonna see that triple-digit timer? We'll see about that. Single ghost already taking so much damage, probably won't get the EMP. There's another ghost that might be able to. Keen's just looking to start picking off units. This is kind of the last hurrah here. Like, neither one of them are going to replace their armies. No matter how good the engagement goes, which is still super questionable on who it's actually going to go good for. Keen a little lower in that supply currently, but... Oh, and he did. Oh, he actually lost a lot of ravens. That's what happened. Okay. 7 ravens to 12. Ryung is certainly taking a lead there, but he's down 9 Vikings. He's still down in the upgrade, too, which, I mean, Vikings pretty bad at overkilling, so maybe it's not the most impactful, but worth pointing out. Another ghost is being made. No nukes. This is purely to try and get that EMP. I think Ryung's ravens have already done tremendous amounts. The value has already been gained. Here comes the potentially final battle. So many auto turrets from Ryung go down, scaring away Keen's Vikings as he now has the deficit. Down by 4. What does he actually have going for him? Keen has just been losing battle after battle. Ryung might just be winning this game. He is very close to breaking Keen. Keen's other bases are only giving him so much to recover. Hail Mary nuke. Nope, not if the ghost dies. I think Ryung has just won out the late game. Oh, this is a super long, drawn-out TvT, where Ryung gets to show his expertise in the late game. He's still up about 20 army supply. He does move rather aggressively into a bunch of tanks. So that was a bit weird, but that's fine. That's fine. Gonna push away a bunch of orbitals. Looks like Ryung is also on top of Keen's very important mining base. And Keen is scanning to, I think, prepare for a tap out. Maybe not. 16 Marines gonna clobber the mineral line, take care of those Marines, but can they really do it all? Can 16 Marines start the comeback? I don't know about that one. Production is still kind of working for Keen, but is now being camped. His defensive army, the Natural, is going to get bopped by a couple of interference matrix, although actually there's only one Raven, so a single interference matrix might be able to do the trick. It's you know, on top of the, I guess, vision that Ryung has as well. Those Marines will get cleaned up, and Keen, where is the rest of his army? Is that it? Is that really just all of it? No, he's got 15 Vikings waiting patiently for perhaps a chance to show off. This medevac drop also cleaned up. Keen only has so many options left over. Drops a whole bunch of mules. Needs to get his gas back up too, though. Needs to actually get his production back up. He lost most of his barracks. And he's not even producing from this one. He's going to go back into just pure marine, trying to get the medevacs, trying to go around the map and actually kill some of Ryung's bases, turn this into a weirder game than it currently is. Because right now, it is just Ryung pushing and Keen defending, but after sizing it all up, Keen decides to go ahead and tap out. He was, at that time, almost half his opponent's army supply, so... GG. Bandai Company major titles planned for 2023. Armored Core? I have not played that game in forever. Apparently DRG Chance is actually a good series. It's taken a while. I think Keen went to BRB. He's not accepting the invite. Or I guess maybe StarCraft bugged out. Seems to be what the issue was. No longer in a party together. Alright, now everyone's ready to go. Crank included. So now for game 4 on Moondance, we got Ryung. And in the top left, it is Keen.
Resubscription received. Apparently you are doing something right, Captain.
Thank you, Emperor Fubel, for the 2-month resub. Grubs Unite. Grubble-ba-dub-dubs. So Keen had a really nice first game, where it felt like he was playing the stronger TvT. And I think in kind of the beginning portion of late game TvT, when there was a lot of expansions and getting maxed out, Keen was also playing a bit better in the last game in that particular portion. But when it came to super late game, really maxing out in the Viking Raven, Keen did keep taking worse fights. Just a slightly worse fight every single time until it was eventually just really bad fights. And while his mass expansion process came down first, it wasn't really all that much later that Ryung also had a lot of his expansions down, and it was just constant struggles over who managed to keep their outside expansions. And both of them really dug into each other's economy. It was Ryung taking the better engagements that was able to pull him through. So, like a 10,000 resource lead towards the end there. Keen would have had to have really taken the map far better than Ryung did to make up for that. So Keen is on his last life of the last Korean qualifier. Again, there is an Asian qualifier, Asian server qualifier that Keen might participate in, because I think he would be possibly the one player to qualify. I think he could hope to do so. But it is only one person qualifying, so it'd be really tough. I got a proxy starport, which might just be for a Hellion drop. Might also just be for proxy, like Banshees even. Really throw a random build in here that Ryung will not be expecting. So everything's gone so, I mean, not exactly so passively in the early game, right? Keen went for a proxy 2 racks. Keen went for the 5 Reaper 3 Hellion thing. So this isn't exactly out of the ordinary, but it is pushing it to a new high. This is the most aggressive you can really get. It's entirely one base going up to a starport. And it is going to be the medevac. Not for a Hellion drop, but rather for a well, it is a Hellion drop. It's not going to be the 4 Hellions and that's it. Try and barbecue up the SCVs. It's going to pick up the Hellions, jump in with the Reapers, and that is going to circumvent the Widowmine. Something that I pointed out could have happened last game, right? Wasn't that last game? But didn't. The Reapers did try to go into the main base, and the Hellions did go into the natural, but with them being disjointed and Ryung being able to size up where he should be with what, it just was a very easy deflection. So let's see if it's as easy when everything is together with that medevac coming in ASAP. And also with Ryung having no idea that that is on the way. Last thing he saw, there was a factory to expand. That has been it. The SCV could even stay in the medevac and repair the Hellions. Alright, it's not going to, though. So there's the pickup. And this should be difficult for Ryung to hold against. Not impossible, just a bit difficult. Cyclone pops, gets the lock on the Hellion. That is broken by a nice pickup there from Keen. And medevac continues to live, trying to heal up some of these Reapers. But the Cyclone's about to have its lock on once again. Although if it is bopped, if it is killed, then doesn't have any lock-on, does it? Yep, lock-on was used on the Reaper, too. Nice pickup once again from Keen. Still has 2 Reapers and a Hellion out here trying to kill even more SCVs. They could not get the Cyclone, but the Cyclone now under repair. It's going to get a couple more SCVs at the very least. Medevac is locked onto finally, but it is easy enough to move that out of the way. And now the Cyclone is in danger. Mass repair has to go down. Plenty of lost mining time. And lost SCVs. Liberator sieges up, realizes that's not going to last for a very long time, gets the heck out of there. Cyclone locks onto the medevac to successfully kill it, finally. And that is the end of the push, but Ryung did take a decent amount of damage. He is down 4 workers. He's still not mining on his natural. And while you would hope that maybe Keen is on a lower army supply, it actually is not the case at all. Keen also lost his army, but has already gotten into that production. Still producing from his starport as well, despite it being proxied. And even saved his Liberator. He'll come back in later. So Ryung really doesn't get at all ahead from that. The only thing he is ahead on is a single Raven, which I'm not sure is going to impact it enough. So a nice opening here from Keen. Certainly gives him the ability to lead the game once again, and perhaps turn that lead into actual victory, but that has proven to be difficult against Ryung. He's very competent once you get to 3 base and on the defense, and this is Moondance. So, well, I think maybe in an ideal world, you know, like Keen right now, kind of living his ideal world, maybe you do go for a forward 3rd base. If you're on the ropes, if you're at all in doubt, you can take the back base anyways. Keen's actually going to go for a push here. I see the potential, but I just have to be very, very careful with it. Okay, so far is careful. Keen's Raven is about to pop, and I'm guessing it's gonna come to the front lines. Interference Matrix is 1 tank. That would be the most devastating thing for Keen to do. If it is even necessary. Ryung now has 2 tanks. He's trying to get to his Vikings, as he has 3 Ravens already. They're building up energy. They're going to have a lot of auto turrets to throw down. And he's buying as much time as possible. He's pulling back, pulling back, and pulling back, but eventually he will run out of space to pull back. Eventually his command center will be under fire, and that's when he really needs to make the tough decision. Pull the trigger or try and, you know, maybe lift the command center by even more time. Thankfully the Vikings arrives. The Liberator is no longer the biggest threat, but this army containing Ryung is still a huge threat in of itself. And Keen is getting his 3rd CC back on that very, very safe base. So no worries there. Liberator's gonna get a couple extra SCV kills to further increase Keen's lead, and Keen decides that maybe he can go for it. Decides, you know what, that's a lot of auto turrets would have been thrown down, so he does pull back. Makes this look a little bit awkward, as it is actually Ryung able to push into kind of the concave of Keen. which usually sounds bad, but it actually means that he's pushing forward a little bit. But all of his energy has been spent. I think it's still okay. Yeah. Ravens are out of energy, but they're alive. 4 tanks are alive. The Vikings are alive. Keen, I think he made a mistake actually pushing into that. And he pretty much immediately recognized it as well. But even still. So Ryung still is in a world of trouble. His 3rd CC is finishing up, turning into an orbital, and he is starting up stim faster, believe it or not, than Keen, which I think he was able to see as well. So that's nice, but Keen has double tech lab, so he's going to have combat shields a lot faster. Slightly less marine production, but in a game like this where Keen has already taken such a lead, I don't know if he's going to be really crying about that. And Ryung is still really not able to do much on the other side of the map. It's nice that he took that engagement. Might have been tempting to run across the map, decides not to. Which means we're probably going to get Turtle Terran. And, you know, don't mind me. Might just be taking a quick nap here. Because this can go on forever and ever and ever. Keen is rebuilding his starport, but he's not lost his old one, so he might just go very quickly into double starport production. I don't know if that's really the ideal thing to do right now. But I guess he'll eventually go into starport production. Or the starport will actually die. Gets a little bit of a scalp, though. That's something. Keen knows where Ryung is coming from and is still going to try and go for a bit of a wraparound. Is that a good idea? It might be a good idea. Ryung doesn't know about it. Ryung sees a disturbingly low number of units. He's got to know that something is up. Yeah. I don't know if this is a good idea for Keen. I can see how it possibly was, but I don't know if it is anymore. And now he decides to go for the counterattack, which means that Ryung has gotten a little bit more time to build up his defenses, but oh, nope, he's going to pull back. Okay. Is using his 2nd starport as well. He's producing 1 medevac from each of them by the looks of things. And Keen, I feel like he had such an easy time if he had just stayed at home. Here comes the concave, but lots of auto turrets going to buy time for the tanks of Ryung to just shatter Keen's army. And Keen, yeah, he's not going to clean anything up here. Wow. That was not very good at all. He had stim and combat shields. He had a bit of a surround, but triple Raven, the amount of auto turrets he can throw down. Damn. Keen's kind of dead. After such a wonderful start as well. But trying to do that wraparound, trying to go for the big surround, I think it was the wrong move. Maybe if he had just left most of his army at home and then had, you know, 1 medevac or 2 medevacs of Marines sent across the map, that might have been okay. But he just lost that fight way too hard on his side of the map, right up on his base. That Ryung might just be able to push and win. I think he is kind of wary of potential backstab now, but yeah, it's so much later. And Keen's gonna see that there's not much defense right now, but how many SCVs can this hit squad really get? Ryung's about to have a tank, about to have 2 medevacs. Currently on equal upgrades. Keen's 4th command center is going to be under fire. He's going to be continued to be pushed in as he loses another tank. Loses more SCVs. He was pushed back on Ryung's side of the map. Yeah, Keen is just playing this out because, you know, he's gotta. It's his last chance in this qualifier. And the Asian server qualifier is just really difficult to actually get through, so... Doesn't want to let this one go, but he already has. He already has. Ryung showing his TvT prowess. Not at the beginning of this best of 5, where Keen looked quite strong, but cleaning it up at the end. 3-1. It's apparently the trend for these qualification matches. So beyond